I've got a little bit of a pivot, or a pivot back to the good old AI topic of the last couple of years. PwC did a survey of around about 4,500 business leaders fairly recently. I've actually got the report on my laptop to read in detail. I haven't quite got to catching up on that. But one of the key headlines that they found, and they were talking to CEOs predominantly of like larger organizations, was that I found essentially a lot of these businesses that have been doing experimentation with AI and making significant investments in some instances had basically found no benefit, no uptick in revenue, no uptick in cost savings, and really just sort of stuck really, and that's the real challenge. So I think let's just read the detail here. Yeah, only 12% had reported both lower costs and higher revenue, whilst 56% saw no benefit, and 26% saw some reduced costs, but nearly as many experienced cost increases as a consequence. So obviously the investments in AI were not really paying off. And I think maybe this is an example of what we've been sort of talking about over the last few weeks and months, is that we know that firms and organizations are buying into this stuff, but not really doing it in a particularly well structured way, and so they're not getting good outcomes. And so perhaps this is a little bit unsurprising in terms of like how things are sort of framed, because if you go about this doing it really well, then you're going to get some benefit. If you don't do it, have a structured way of approaching AI and looking at where it will have the most impact in your business, then you're not going to see any benefit. To be fair, now in my role at HLB, we saw this from a survey of business leaders back in 2024 when we were asking them about like AI investments and whether or not they were seeing any impact. And again, the results were somewhat similar to what PwC have got here.
Again, it's a survey of 4,500 CEOs. I really would love to know more about the sample, because what size of business? There 4,500 CEOs in given how many companies there are in the UK, is tiny, John. And to me, it's just, okay, I get that they're trying to find something that then fits the narrative, says AI is hyperbole and, don't bother changing anything. It feels biased. It feels biased when I look and I talk to other businesses all around. Yes, there's some resistance on how AI can fit into the strategy, especially if we look in the accounting sector. There is a little bit of a pause, but then you see amazing applications coming down the track where they are leveraging AI. We're talking about Sage and how they're leveraging AI and how much investment they're putting into Sage operations, which will in effect take them down that path. We're talking about how Noom was launched a few weeks back. We were talking about treasury applications have then started imbuing AI into the technology and making it much more sophisticated for businesses to run their FX and run their treasury in real time, and generate better interest from it. So I just think, where did they find these 4,500 CEOs? Where?
I mean, I do wonder though if, when you look at some of these products and these developments and stuff that we're seeing, quite often they do come with a price increase, or there is an additional cost of investment with more software, for example. And I think, again, in my experience, from working with businesses and working in accounting firms, is like sometimes it's incredibly difficult to measure the marginal gains that you might be making and really like turn that into pounds and pence on the bottom line in terms of what the real impact is. So I do think there are some challenges around measurement of impact, and particularly where let's say we're looking at an accounting work stream where maybe you're just improving a level of automation, and that level of automation is making a very, very marginal improvement. It's very difficult for firms and businesses to accurately measure that. Let's say you take a transaction processing from, say, taking 10 seconds to 2 seconds. The reality is most organizations are not measuring time at that kind of granular level, and not really then being able to sort of approximate the impact. And so I think there is definitely an intangible element to this, and again, I guess historically we're used to seeing significant changes. You move from desktop to cloud accounting historically, and you could see transformational impacts, because you weren't just saving seconds, you were saving minutes or even hours in some instances as a consequence of that change. We are talking much more now with AI, at the moment at least, around sort of fairly marginal gains, I think, in a lot of work streams and processes that businesses operate